Welcome to Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park and Titans tonight. Mike Keith, Amie Wells, Keith Bulluck on assignment tonight. Unfortunately, could not be with us. So it's just the two of us, but we certainly have a lot to discuss. And if you would like to take part, how do you say it? You message me? You tweet at me?
Tweet at me.
At 10 Voice.
If you say message you, then it's
something different.
It's something different.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you want a bunch of people.
Well, it's okay. I mean, whatever. But if you want to join in the topic, because I'm interested to know what Titans fans are thinking tonight specifically, was we kind of are going to discuss the quarterback situation here a little bit. At 10 Voice. That is at 10 Voice.
Two N's.
With two N's, like TENN Voice.
Yep.
And, tweet at me.
Yeah.
And
make sure you put at 10 Voice in it.
At 10 Voice, what do you think about this? Or I think this, or whatever. We would love that.
Don't micromanage their tweets.
I know. I mean, whatever they want. I mean, we'll see if anybody responds. All right. So, report came out yesterday, first from Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, that the Titans were benching Will Levis in favor of Mason Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
The report was obviously not confirmed by the ball club, in large part because the people who are involved in football are not public on Tuesdays. The players are off. The football staff is busy game planning, so there is not a media availability. That's not something you would put out a release on. The first chance that you would have to comment about that would be post-practice today.
Mm-hmm.
And head coach Brian Callahan chose to comment, I think wisely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Because I think he would have put his players in a very difficult spot had he not chosen to make a comment and kind of lay out what was going to go on. And he announced that the reports were true yesterday. Mason Rudolph will start Sunday at Indianapolis, and Will Levis will be the backup. Here's why Brian Callahan said he did that.
I think I should be very clear about it, too. This doesn't mean that this is the end of Will's ability to be a good quarterback. This is just situationally in the season and where we're at. We felt like we needed a spark at the quarterback position. He's kind of had two games that really have been a struggle for him, and we need to have better there. And just like any other player, when your play dips the way it did, and we have a chance to let somebody else go do it. I still believe very much in Will. I still plan on coaching him hard. He's still going to be ready to play. Those are all things that we have to be able to do, and he's under contract, and he's still part of our team. And so no different than any other position, and we're going to coach, and we're going to coach him hard. And there's things that he's really improved on over the course of the year, and those are things we're going to keep working to improve overall.
Brian Callahan also explaining where he feels like there's been a disconnect with Will Levis going from his preparation and taking that out onto the field.
That's one of the things that we've really worked hard on is taking it from the media room, where he's outstanding. I mean, he can see and talk and diagnose and understand everything that's happening, to the practice field, where he tends to see it all really well during practice. And then the third step is the game, and that's the performance part. And we got to do a better job. I got to do a better job of finding ways to make that connection from practice to the games on Sundays to where it feels, looks, and is executed the same way. And so that's always the challenge with all players, particularly young ones, is that you're trying to keep building that meeting room to practice to game, that consistency overall. And that's where we've had some disconnect a little bit, is the consistency from those two spots to performance on Sunday.
Brian Callahan talking post-practice today about the decision to sit Will Levis. He initially started when he made the announcement and kind of went at it from what felt like it was going to be the standpoint that Mason Rudolph is starting the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Then he backtracked on that some. Would you agree?
Well, I think he
stopped short of going
He
there.
was pressed make that statement, and he chose not to.
He chose not to.
It sounded as though he was making the decision permanent when pressed to really clarify that it meant all 3 games. He stopped short of saying saying that they are going to look each week at what gives this team the best opportunity to win, which I think is fair to say.
The things that jump out to me at this moment, I think Will Levis is under contract for 2 more years.
Yes.
His salary cap number next year is pretty close, if you believe what you read, it's pretty close to what Mason Rudolph's is this year. It's around $2.6 million. Would be just a little over $3 million in 2026. To trade him or to waive him at some point, it really wouldn't be much of a savings. So he's going to cost you relatively the same amount if he's on the team as if he's not on the team.
Right.
So that's something to consider. This is not a Daniel Jones type of situation where Daniel Jones was in the last year of a contract, and the Giants chose to demote him. They were not going to play him for the rest of the season. It became obvious it was going to be disruptive. And so they went ahead and waived him, and now he's in Minnesota on their practice squad. Will Levis's situation is different because he's still on the rookie contract.
Correct.
So this does not mean that Will Levis is not on the football team next year.
Absolutely not.
He may not be, but this does not mean that. I think at this moment, the biggest thing that happens for the Titans is now you have uncertainty at the quarterback position again.
Yes.
Whereas you had certainty that it was Will Levis's job and you were staying on that path, and now you've come off of that path to a certain extent, although he could certainly go back in a game this year, and because as it stands now, he is going to be the backup. They have not given an indication, and they still have the rest of the week, that they could activate Trevor Siemian from the practice squad, and then you decide that Will Levis is not going to play at all. So it's significant. I mean, there's absolutely no question about the significance of what has happened, but it is not a moment of finality as of yet.
No, and
about anything.
I also don't think it's a moment of, I don't even know the word. Here's what we have to remember. Yes, there was some stability in that we knew that Will Levis was the guy for this season, for 2024, but that is all we have ever been guaranteed. Brian Callahan has said from the very beginning that he wanted to see what he had in Will Levis, what this was going to look like, and he was going to take this season to evaluate that. So while, yes, we had consistency, that consistency was only promised for a season.
That's right.
So now we're sitting in a position where it seems as though the writing is on the wall. What the quarterback position is, or is, I guess more, is not going to look like going forward. And so now we are back in an area of inconsistency. We are in not inconsistency.
A state of flux.
Yeah, we are in a state of flux. That's a much better way of saying it.
Yeah, we're in a state of flux because they were going to give Levis every chance to show everything, and how he played on Sunday stopped that.
Right.
When you throw 3 interceptions in 4 plays and you lose a fumble, you're in a game that you have a chance to win, and it's gone. And it was very disappointing on all ends. Will Levis today in the locker room sounded disappointed, but also he said, "I think I can still be the guy."
Yeah,
and so he's, like I said, the finality of it isn't exactly what it may feel like at this moment because of other things hanging in the balance. It may very well be. We shall see at the end of the season what that will look like. But for now, what we know is he's not starting against Indianapolis.
Right.
and he was pulled from a game last week, and the plan is to move forward with Mason Rudolph. Maybe not the announced plan that he'll go the rest of the way, play the 3 AFC South games, but I think you can infer that's what the plan is.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. I think that as long as nothing catastrophic happens, and I mean that more in terms of unforeseen things like injury and
Sure.
the such, I would guess that they are just going to just stick to the course and kind of go the rest of the way out and finish the season. And then at the end of the year, there's the big wholesale reevaluation. We look at everything.
Well, I think, what this leads us to is the Titans are headed towards trying to find out who the quarterback is again.
Yep.
And this is a road that's really difficult.
Yeah, this is not a fun place to be.
Well, it's the team has been in this situation before. When you are searching for your quarterback, that's a hard thing to do. What we do know is right now they don't have an obvious answer for 2025. It could be somebody on the current roster, including Will Levis.
Mm-hmm.
It could be somebody from the draft. It could be a free agent. All of these things are certainly possible. But at this point, you're back to that.
Yeah.
And I think that part of it is something, if you make the determination you're going to take him out of the game now and that he's not going to play the rest of the way, you've confirmed you're going to be looking.
Yeah, that's the road we're walking down come January. Yep.
All right, so you can tweet at me at 10Voice and give me some of your thoughts, give Amie some of your thoughts on this Will Levis situation and where you think they are right now. Keith Bulluck is not with us tonight. We would love to talk with you further about what's going to go on with the Titans. And so Mason Rudolph will make his 18th career start. He played very well starting games a year ago, the final 3 games and then a playoff game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's what landed him here. They wanted him here for that very reason, that he could step in and play. He has stepped in and played already this year. Results were mixed.
Yeah.
4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but he he certainly did a capable job. Could he take it a step further? Could he put himself in a position to be the man to beat? Or does he raise his stock for free agency going forward based on that?
Yeah.
And that's going to be, where this is and the many different ways it can go in terms of, do you have some sort of competition? Do you bring in somebody who's a veteran, but they're not necessarily handed the job and there's a battle? Or Titans have the 6th pick in the draft right now. Do they think they can get a capable quarterback there? Do they go up? Is it going to be like 2015, where we chased people all over the country? Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
We knew the Titans were going to take one of those 2 guys. Whomever Tampa Bay didn't take, the Titans were going to take. If you believe the draft analysts, there are not the 2 odds-on guys right now like there were 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very different makeup to this draft class than what we've seen, I think, in a couple years, where there aren't those guys that have just far and away separated themselves today. Well, there are guys who are at the top of the group of quarterbacks, and we know that quarterbacks are kind of their own separate entity within the makeup of the draft. But there aren't the big, flashy, superstar, very obvious, this guy will be your first, this guy will be your second, this guy will be your third, as we've had in previous years. And that's just the reality of this class.
Well, and something else that needs to be pointed out while we talk about what Levis's cap numbers will be going forward and the fact that he's under contract, the Titans do have a good amount of cap room for 2025. Not as much as last year. But if they want to go grab a veteran,
they can.
They can.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to trade for somebody, like remember, people say, well, it was great that they signed Ryan Tannehill. They didn't sign Ryan Tannehill. They traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be is there somebody lurking out there that the Miami Dolphins at that point had said, Ryan Tannehill was, done with
Not
them.
their guy.
Right.
Yep.
And so he comes to Nashville, and he leads the team to 3 straight playoff appearances, and statistically is the best quarterback the Titans have had since Steve McNair.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things will be factored in, but it's put the Titans on a different track.
Yes. Yeah. It has changed the color of the offseason today. And because now this is going to be the conversation. And rightly so. It's one of the most important positions in professional sports. But this is going to be a conversation for a long time. And the quest for what 2025 looks like, it feels like starts today.
All right, so Carl has tweeted at me, says, hey, Mike, with the news on Levis's benching, what responsibility does the organization take in his lack of development? It's a fair question. I think everybody has to take part of this because there's a tremendous amount of disappointment. The Titans felt like they stole him in the second round in 2023. They knew they needed to take someone last year because they felt like it was Tannehill's last year, and Tannehill's end came sooner than what people knew, even though he did go back and play in the season finale in the win over Jacksonville. But they needed a guy, and they wanted to get one early. There was a lot of speculation they were trying to move up and grab a player in the top 2 or top 3. C.J. Stroud was the focus of all of the reports. Houston went ahead and took him. And then the Titans, considered taking Levis at 11, but they took Skoronski. And that's working out pretty well.
Yep.
Pete's having the kind of year and giving them stability at the left guard position that they really, really wanted. And then they immediately started trying to trade back into the first round to take Levis. They did not have to do that. They merely had to trade for the first pick in the second round, and they got him. And then it set them on a course where they knew they had some time because Tannehill was going to be the quarterback last year. That was the plan. And that they would develop Will and be able to coach him up. And then, Will has the opportunity to win the job. He ends up playing earlier than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
He had good moments. He had bad moments. He had injury. He got banged up some. He wasn't really well protected. But overall, what you saw of him in the rookie year, I think everybody was positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was overwhelmingly optimistic.
Yeah, everybody was enthusiastic about his chances.
About what he could be. It wasn't necessarily what you were seeing in that moment, which was fine, which was good. But it was, if this is what we're seeing right now, the possibilities.
So then the coaching staff gets fired. And so Will Levis gets a head coach who's an offensive coach and a really good quarterback coach and a good offensive coordinator and a completely new system.
Yeah, and that's hard.
It's hard. I think that's one area where this whole thing is tough on Will Levis is that he has had to learn on the fly. Mm-hmm. It has not been his rookie year. Because it's obviously his second season, and he did make 9 starts as a rookie. But in some ways it has felt like it because that's what he was up against. I think the fact that he's been working with 2 different coaching staffs in 2 different seasons, that certainly couldn't have helped him.
No.
But at the same time, I think he was given a lot of opportunity. They brought in people specifically for him. Brian Callahan wanted to coach him. Brian Callahan still says, hey, I'm still coaching Will Levis. I haven't given up on Will Levis. Mm-hmm. But at this moment in time, I think everybody they took a chance. And that was a lot of what this was about, Amie, was that they were going to take a chance on Will Levis and hope that the whole thing really worked out because if it did, you hit the jackpot in 2 different ways. He's a physically gifted player who's smart, but you also didn't have to take him in the first round. so he doesn't cost you as much money up front. And
Right.
you've got to, if Will Levis hits, you've got a chance to hit a jackpot for the organization. At this time, at this moment, it's not worked.
No, it hasn't.
But I think it's probably on everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that the lack of consistency is a part of that. I think that there is, there's many different factors that contribute to it. But the reality is that realizing this now is better than continuing down the road.
Well, it's what you've always had to know was going to come.
Right.
Because you set out with a plan, and people didn't all want to hear the plan. I get it.
Yeah.
Especially when he had some bad moments early in the season. But, I mean, listen, Will is physically gifted.
He is.
I mean, he's got some talents, and he's made some throws even this year that have gotten people excited at different points. And
he's a human that it's very easy to root for.
oh, sure.
I mean, as just a person, he's smart, he is kind, he is polite, he's
a good
great
dude
in the community. He is a good person to work with, and so you want all of the pieces to come together. You want to give that guy every possible opportunity that you can to make it work. Like he's the type of person that you want in your organization if you can make that work out. You want him in that leadership role.
And so for this moment, at least, it has not.
Yes.
And we will see what it looks like going forward. We're going to discuss this more. Obviously, tweet me your questions or your comments about this situation, and Amie and I will discuss them here on Titans Tonight without Keith Bulluck, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners on Titans Radio. Titans Tonight, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners, continues on Titans Radio. Mike Keith and Amie Wells. Keith Bulluck on assignment tonight, unable to join us. We spent the first segment discussing the Will Levis story today, which was formal acknowledgement that Will Levis has been benched and that Mason Rudolph will play quarterback for the Tennessee Titans on Sunday in Indianapolis. We're offering you, asking you, maybe even imploring you to
Begging you.
Tweet at me at 10voice, at TENN, 2 N's, at 10voice, and looking at some of your comments towards this development and what you think comes next with that. So hopefully we will hear from more of you. We heard from someone in our opening segment about that. The other thing from Brian Callahan's press conference was a real surprise.
Yes.
And it did not have anything to do with the quarterback situation. Brian Callahan was asked, people are saying your football team is soft. How do you respond to that? This is how he responded.
I mean, you really want to get me going today? Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think it's complete and total. If you want my honest opinion, these guys are tough, man. They go after it every day. They play hard as hell. And there's at no point have we ever put on tape at any point this season that this is a soft football team. Like I can't even wrap my mind around how that would even be a conversation. I mean, just because we don't win games doesn't mean we're soft. These guys play their off. They play hard. They play physical. You can ask any team that plays against us that when they come off the field, they know they played us. Yeah, that makes me relatively angry that would be some presumption. That means you just don't, you don't do anything about it, that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're looking at. So I'm not going to stand for anybody calling this football team soft. So if there's opinions out there that feel that way, then they don't know anything about NFL football. So I'd like you to walk in there and call one of these guys soft and see what happens. This is not a soft football team at all, mentally or physically. And I think one of the things mentally that's really been impressive about the team is that the way that they keep fighting through the way that this season has gone. They've not shown at any point that they're not up to the task. They come out every day and work. They have. I mean, I'm really. You're gonna really get me going now. I mean, these guys come out here and they do everything possible to win games. And if there's any assumption anywhere that's outside of this building. Again, we don't focus on all those things, but there's no possible explanation to say that this team is soft any way, shape, or form, mentally or physically. And the way that they go about their work it's insulting to me, to them, to everyone that works here. So I'm not that no chance ever in hell would I ever admit that to be the case, and neither would anybody in this locker room. So you can kind of shove that one.
Whoa.
Yeah. Spicy. My favorite part is that he says he's relatively angry.
Yeah.
Coach, I think you're all the way angry. Like, I think we're there. I don't think we are relative to anything anymore. I think you're all the way mad. He was all the way mad.
I've never seen that in person.
From anybody?
From anybody.
No, I haven't either. That is the angriest reaction I have ever seen at an NFL podium. And I've been at a few.
But I've heard this team called a lot of things.
Yeah.
And some of the criticisms are quite fair. I mean, they're 3-11.
Yeah.
Soft is not one that I have heard.
But no, I've never heard this team referred to as soft. Of all of the things that they have been called, and there are some things.
Oh, there are some things, yeah.
Soft is not one of them. I had the thought, is this like a Marty McFly situation where soft is his trigger, like calling him chicken? Back to the Future, for those of you who are listening and may not understand the reference.
I think everybody in football nobody wants to ever be called soft, but particularly if you're associated with a professional football team.
Yeah, but even
I think that's the biggest insult you can get.
Is that you're soft?
Is that you're soft.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's fair.
I mean, because
it's not when people say it, they don't generally mean it nicely.
No, but it's not. I mean, like, for example, this defense isn't even allowing 300 yards a game this year. If you were allowing 450,
yeah,
and you were just going out and letting people steamroll you that way,
yeah,
that's soft.
So not only have I never heard this team referred to as soft, statistically, it doesn't really make sense. No,
it doesn't make sense. And
so I don't.
I mean, they've turned the ball over 29 times, which is bad.
That's not soft, though. It's just kind of dumb.
Well, and they've been penalized too many times this year.
Also, not soft, though.
That's soft.
Stupid.
Not soft.
Like,
yeah.
Like, almost the opposite if you're getting penalized so many times, because usually it means you're overly aggressive, which is the opposite of soft.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense. And then there was a follow-up question about Brownlee being soft, and like Jarvis Brownlee's not soft.
No.
So I mean that's
because he said
he was cold.
He got cold at Washington.
Yeah, but like that is not if I'm cold, that doesn't mean I'm soft.
Right.
Like, so that doesn't track. The whole premise of the initial line of questioning didn't make sense to me because that was not anything I had ever seen anywhere as it pertains to this ball club, and hasn't been my experience at practice, in interactions with people, in any sort of anything. I have never gotten the impression from this team that they aren't trying, that they don't care, that they're just kind of going through the motions, that they're kind of loafing around. And listen, I have seen some teams that by the end of the season, especially in December when things aren't going well, they are mailing it in.
Well, we've had a couple years ago that, by the time you got to this point, the surfboards were on top of the car with the car running. And, I mean, it does happen.
Yeah, but I have never seen that here.
Well, I mean, that doesn't appear to be the case with this team.
No.
Regardless. But, I think it was an emotional time for Brian Callahan because I think there's a real part of him that's disappointed about where the quarterback situation is. I think he genuinely wanted better for the team, for the entire organization, for Will. And so, I think it's that part of it has been hard that to this point at least it hasn't worked, and it may not. And so I think he was kind of on that edge, and I think that question may have surprised him.
And just caught him.
We deal with Brian a lot. He's on Titans Radio with us on Mondays, and we do a TV show, and he's, Brian's serious about football now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like,
Yeah.
For anybody who thinks he's just taking this with a grain of salt and
No.
that it's not eating him up, doesn't know Brian. And I can't say I know Brian overly well. We've just been with him for a year.
But we spend enough time with him to gauge.
And talk away from
Yeah.
when the cameras and the microphones are on to kind of get where he's at on certain things. And I mean, he's suffered some. I mean, it's been tough.
Yeah.
Because he had higher hopes for this year than what it's turned out to be, and they're still trying to get their arms around what it is. And unfortunately, because that has not been something they've been able to do, the team's 3-11 and on pace for another losing season, which is just it's a crusher.
Well, and listen, no matter who you are, he has had the type of season, for whatever reason, that every time he turns around, it feels like something else is on fire. They've had injuries. They've had just myriad things that they've had to deal with. Inconsistencies at certain positions. And you fix that, now there's problems over here. Oh, nope, somebody's hurt. We thought we had that fixed. Now it's not fixed anymore. Now we've got to go back to the drawing board. It has just been constant obstacle after obstacle for Brian Callahan and this group this season. It's the nature of a football season.
Nothing has flowed smoothly.
Yes, nothing has gone smoothly.
And so, whether rightly or wrongly, he hasn't gotten a break.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, the 21 team. Mm-hmm. That football team loses Derrick Henry, and you say, "Oh, the year's over." Some people did say the year is over, and yet some other things just fell into place, and you're just like, "Ooh, this is one of those years."
Yep.
And then right now, as you look at this team, Brian Callahan's first, you say, "Ooh, this is one of those years." Mm-hmm. But it's the other way,
where nothing just fell,
where nothing just fit together the right way. Mm-hmm. And you're going to spend every first part of the off season doing an autopsy of the season. Mm-hmm. Unless you win the Super Bowl, the other 31 teams, it's an autopsy.
Right.
You dig into it and you're figuring out, why did this go wrong? Why did these things go wrong? And that's going to be a big thing for this ball club in January and February, is to figure it out. But you have to hope that whatever the next steps are, they fall into place and they flow in a way that just works.
Yeah. And I think that at this point in the season, as things are becoming a little bit clearer that this is the reality of where this team is and this is how this is going to unfold. Listen, I mean, 6, 7, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, this was his dream job. Mm-hmm. And it's been a tough year. And that's a hard thing to kind of realize, that you've been fighting through all of this stuff in the job that you worked your whole career for. Like, his first year as a head coach did not go the way that I'm sure he envisioned it in his head.
Anybody.
And that's really tough to kind of come to terms with and continue to fight through, continue to lead people, continue to be as consistent and even-keeled as he's been all season, and then to be standing in front of people and have someone say, "Oh, by the way, people say that you and your team are soft." Like,
well, and
I understand why there was a more emotional response than we have ever seen from him before.
Well, we can debate, whether or not the comments were appropriate or
right, and that's
and that whatever.
That's for someone else.
But I think the thing that I'm most interested in at this moment is, here's a guy who has spent his life in football, watched his dad do it. I mean, he's been around it since he was 5 years old, whatever. So he gets it.
Yeah. He knows better than anybody.
He knows better than anybody that this has got to get fixed.
Yep.
This has got to get fixed. He understands it. And so whether it's flowed right or the quarterback didn't work out or what's happened, who knows. But at a certain point, this has to get straight. And they've got to get a handle on what gets it to start being straight as quickly as possible.
Right. And, I mean, that could be anything.
Yeah,
that's an off-season problem.
That's going to – well, unfortunately, it continues to be a problem.
Right.
And for the fan base, it's just – it's brutally hard to hear.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to be here anymore, and we are.
Yeah, and we understand.
A break. More Titans tonight, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners on Titans Radio. Amie, some people have tweeted at me here. Let's do their comments and questions.
Does that make you feel cool?
I don't know. It's
it
nice
should.
though. I appreciate them doing that.
Yeah.
Justin says it feels like the Titans lost their identity with the loss of Vrabel, Henry, KB, etc. This deep into the season, we still don't have one. I think that's probably right.
Yeah, well, I think when you get a new coaching staff and you have roster turnover, there is obviously an identity shift. I mean, the same way when we lost Brian Arakpo, Derek Morgan, that group of people – there was an identity shift.
But if you got a little something going on in December, you've established an identity.
Yeah, but I agree that the Titans may not have one now.
He goes on to say, I do think people overreact by wanting to get rid of Brian. Assuming Rudolph isn't long-term, do they go veteran or rookie next year? Maybe both.
Yeah. It depends on what's out there.
I mean, there are a lot of – and this is the part of the discussion now is because you've got to start to figure out who will be in this equation. So I think it's too early to tell.
Definitely too early to tell.
Rick says, I don't care who the quarterback is, but they need to lose out.
Oh.
They have to get a talented quarterback, and that requires a top 2 or 3 pick. Titans would pick 6th right now.
Never will I ever advocate for tanking for draft picks, and neither will anybody else in the National Football League.
No, I'm with you. And to be honest with you, Rick, we would give anything to beat all 3 of these divisional opponents.
Yeah, especially against division teams.
Yeah.
I want to beat the Jags just for fun.
Steven says what comes next is what we saw from Mason Rudolph when he helped the Titans win against the Miami Dolphins. Mason proved he can read the defense and get the ball to the right receiver. So Steven's up on Mason.
Great. Do it on Sunday.
Let's see. Here's another one. Benching Will Levis was the right decision. The bigger issue is what is the plan as an organization? The coach looks lost. The GM doesn't seem to have a plan. The franchise is years away from competing. I'll just say this. That's what everybody thought at the end of the 2015 season.
Yeah.
Because we had gone 5-27, years away. And if we beat Jacksonville in December 2016, that team goes to the playoffs.
Yep.
That was a fast turnaround because a lot of DeMarco Murray hit. Trading Dennis Kelly for Dorial Green Beckham hit. The draft picks hit. Everything sort of hit.
You need one season where the things, like we were talking about earlier, where things fall into place a little bit. You just need one season of that.
Yep.
That's what we're waiting on.
So, even less than 10 years ago, when they thought we were decades away.
We weren't.
No, didn't turn out to be the case.
That was.
Here's one. On a positive note, can you talk a bit about Bryce Oliver? He seems to flash once a game, and he was great in the preseason. Bryce is doing a super job. Right now he's got 5 special teams tackles. He's got 5 catches for 80 yards. Bryce is doing more quickly than they thought he would. But, he's in the plan because he's bigger, he's faster. He's 6'1", he's about 215. He's not scared to smack somebody on special teams. And so that's going to get him to the 48-man roster consistently. Bryce is one of the reasons that the special teams unit is playing better. Is because he's giving them so much. There's several guys doing a nice job, but most of them are the young players, and Bryce is one of those. And he's going to be on the active 48 on game day because he's making himself an invaluable part of special teams. Because of that, he's going to end up getting to play receiver some. And that's the whole key. The key for a young player is not necessarily making the 53. That's great. The key is to be active on game day in the 48 because then you start to get a chance to do things really in the mix. And you'll notice he's playing more at receiver because they have more confidence in him.
Yeah, I mean, that was Nick Westbrook-Akine's whole strategy.
Same thing.
That was exactly the path that he knew he was going to have to take, and he has done it masterfully.
Yeah, and Bryce Oliver has shown a lot. A final break, and then back with more of this edition of Titans Tonight with, unfortunately, no Keith Bulluck.
Yeah, but we're fun.
Yeah, we are fun.
We're nice.
Brought to you by Pinnacle Financial Products, official bank of the Tennessee Titans. Visit titansbanking.com to learn more about Pinnacle's winning plays. Pinnacle Financial Partners, member FDIC, as you listen to Titans Radio. Final segment of Titans Tonight with Keith Bulluck. Mike Keith and Amie Wells here tonight. Not practicing today for the Titans. Tyler Boyd, foot. Nick Folk, abdomen. Luke Gifford, concussion. Kenneth Murray, hamstring. Tony Pollard, ankle. Otis Reese, ankle. Jeffrey Simmons, rest. Tavondre Sweat, shoulder. Actually, it's
from stiff arming.
It's the stiff arming hand that's a little sore.
Just a
Nick
little
Westbrook-Akine, ankle. Daryl Worley, calf. Colton Dow, back
Limited.
in practicing for the first time this year. His return to play window has been opened, so
That's
good for him.
exciting.
He was listed as limited. Jalen Duncan and Roger McCrary, both full participants. Duncan could be activated this week.
Exciting for him.
It could be. And McCrary hopefully will be back after missing 2 games with the shoulder injury. From the Colts list, nothing really jumping out. They've had a bunch of guys on the list kind of all year with the same things. Michael Pittman with the back. And you'll remember before the first game 10 weeks ago, his back was so severe that national media reported that he was going to have surgery. And
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so
And then he played.
he played miraculous. maybe he had the back surgery and he was back in like 48 hours.
I don't think so.
Which would have been some sort of record.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like we got a little hoodooed on that one, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not putting a lot of
Misled.
stock in this injury report.
No.
Nope.
Michael Pittman did not practice. Alec Pierce, concussion, did not practice.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. But they may be getting some guys back this week from injured reserve. Colts are 6-8. Titans are 3-11. Mason Rudolph will be the starting quarterback for the Titans as Will Levis heads to the bench. And he will take on Anthony Richardson, who we did not see in the first game. He was still coming back from a abdominal injury of some sort.
An oblique, right?
Oblique.
Is obliques.
Isn't that like an
I think it's on the side.
side?
I'm not a doctor. I just look at injury reports and watch Grey's Anatomy sometimes.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Makes for a good sideline reporter, though. I know all the words.
It does. You were a very good
I
sideline reporter.
can't do anything to help you, but I know all the words.
All right, so we're on the air at 11 a.m. Central Time from Lucas Oil Stadium with Titans Countdown. And then kickoff is set for 12:02. Titans have won 5 of their last 7 in Indianapolis.
You think Jim Irsay's going to open the roof, do something goofy?
I mean, on December 22nd, you would think not.
But who's to say?
Yeah.
He gets a little squirrely sometimes.
Sometimes.
So, as it pertains to the Titans, yes.
For Amie Wells, I'm Mike Keith. Thanks for listening to Titans Tonight, presented by Pinnacle Financial Partners. Good night, everybody.